It's a little terrifying because you absolutely cannot miss.
Goalies now are completely at a premium.
Not, right? Like, Canada doesn't have a ton of great options.
What's up, hockey fans? Welcome to the big show. I'm Michael Traikos, and I'm here with, as always, Ryan Kennedy. And we've got a special guest for you today. We've got everyone's favorite former coach, Bruce Boudreau. How you doing there, Gabby?
I'm doing good, Michael. Thank you.
All right, let's get right started here because we're almost a week into the playoffs, and we're starting to see some separation. I want to start with the Edmonton LA series that I guess a lot of us, we're expecting, is this going to be LA's year? 3 straight years where Edmonton has taken them in the first round, and a little bit different right now. LA's got a 2-0 lead, and I guess the story of the series is the goaltending. A lot of talk about Stuart Skinner going into the playoffs, has allowed 11 goals now in both losses combined. Bruce, I'll start things off with you. If you're the head coach, if you're Chris Knobloch, who is starting in Game 3?
Well, I'd be looking at Grant Fuhr right now if I was them. No, listen, you know what? Calvin Pickard can give you a game every now and again. But he is what he is. He's a career backup for the most part. And you have put all your eggs into the Stuart Skinner basket from the year before and from the year before that. And I think in both of those past 2 years, the first few games in the first series, he wasn't very good at, and then he came back and he started playing really good. I think, you gotta go with the guy that brought you to the dance, and I think they got to go with Stuart Skinner because to me, if they put Calvin Pickard in right now, to me it looks like, oh, we're panicking. We don't know what to do. And if that was ever to, like, say they won 6-5 tomorrow night, like, now what do we do? Like, I mean, I think they got to look like they know what they're doing, that they're confident in the guy they have, even if they're not, and put Stuart Skinner and hope he comes back to form of the way he did in the finals, the conference finals, and the series against Vancouver last year. I mean, I don't know what else you could do as far as goaltending and not look like, hey, are we stupid that we didn't make a move? We had a whole year to make a move. I look at other teams, they've made moves and done it. Or, I mean, are we just sitting there and we're just, hoping and praying that this guy can play? So I think you got to look confident. You got to say you have faith in the guy. But I will tell you this, it's not only him. That defense is pretty horrid. I mean, I don't want to get on a soapbox here, but I mean, they definitely are not even close to being the defensive team they had last year. And anytime I see Bouchard playing 28 minutes a night, and that's, to me, he plays for both teams on every shift. So I mean, it's troubling. So I mean, I don't want to lay all the blame at the feet of the goaltenders. The defensive play of the defense has not been great in Edmonton's case, I don't think.
What do you think, Ryan? Like, obviously the big elephant in the room is this team is missing Mattias Ekholm, and he makes a huge difference if he is on the back end there. Is it a matter of the goaltending has to be better, or the guys in front of him have to be better? How do you see it shaking up?
Yeah, I mean, they all have to be better, but I mean, structurally, that is the problem, right? Is Mattias Ekholm was a fantastic acquisition for the Edmonton Oilers, and it wasn't only because he was such a good shutdown defenseman, but I covered that Cup final last year, and he was giving them offense too. Like Mattias Ekholm was contributing in all 3 zones in a positive way. You take him and his minutes out, it really blows up everything that the Oilers had planned on the back end, because as Bruce mentioned, like Evan Bouchard, a fantastic offensive defenseman, but he has his limitations. And when it comes to goaltending, I totally agree that if you put Pickard in for 1 game and he wins, then it's like, can you go back to Skinner? Because then you're saying like, okay, well, we didn't have faith in him. And, for Pickard, can he win you 16 playoff games in 1 year? I don't think he can. maybe it's all a moot point because the Kings are just a better team right now. But it just feels like the Oilers are in kind of a death spiral. And I will say they haven't played at home yet, and that could make a world of difference. But right now, it's just like they're in a tough spot.
Well, let's give a little credit to the Kings. And Bruce, I'm curious about your opinion on this. This has been so far 2 games in the coming out party of Quinton Byfield. And I know Quinton real well because he's from my neck of the woods in Newmarket. Challenging Connor McDavid for, arguably the best player in Newmarket right now. But another guy that's been just amazing for the Kings has been Adrian Kempe. And combined, those guys have 5 goals. Ryan mentioned that the series is going back to Edmonton now. Edmonton's going to have the last change. They have the matchup advantage. How do you go about challenging what LA's got up front? And can they do anything to kind of stop that big powering forward that is Byfield right now?
Well, I mean, let's take this in 2 steps here. One, they can't do anything if anything on matchups if they're on the power play all the time.
Yeah.
And I think LA's 5 for 10 on the power play right now. And so, I mean, that's one thing. It's there. They're putting their power play out against your penalty killing. So Byfield has gotten better and better and better. And this is his coming out year. I keep always thinking about it was Guy Lafleur's 3rd year before he turned into Guy Lafleur. And I mean, a lot of guys, they take their time. It's not that they take their time, but it takes a little bit till they, and Byfield grows into his man's body and he gets confident on playing. I mean, and I think he's become a stud. I think Kempe's, always been a great player. When I coached against him, I mean, his speed and his sort of his knack for the net has always been overlooked because LA was more of a drop back and dump it in and let's play defensive. So you didn't get to see that offensive style. But I mean, I think LA has owned 5 out of 6 periods right now in this series. And it's going to be different, I would think, coming back to Edmonton. But I really believe that LA's in the locker room saying, we are not letting this happen. We are not letting this happen. They beat us 3 times. We are going to be determined to win. And I got to believe in the Edmonton locker room, there's a little bit of doubt in the air. They got, I think, the oldest team in the league. And if McDavid doesn't do McDavid things and Draisaitl doesn't do Draisaitl things, I mean, I don't know where else they get other stuff. If you watch LA, they keep coming at you. They finish checks. They play a hard game, an in-your-face game everywhere. And I just don't know if Edmonton can contain that and win 4 to the next 5.
Well, another series that is 2-0 goes Game 3 tonight. Ottawa hosting the Toronto Maple Leafs. Similar to the Edmonton LA series, this has been a series about the special teams, Bruce. Toronto's power play, as good as LA's looked, has just looked deadly. We were joking up in the press box. Do they need 10 seconds to get a goal? Like at the most 20 seconds? I don't think I've ever seen a 5-man unit as effective as the Leafs have been. Real quick from you, or maybe not quick, but what do you make of them having 4 or 5 forwards on the power play? And is that something that you ever toyed with, whether it was in Washington or any other of the stops that you've been there?
I've been lucky that I think that every stop I've had a really good offensive defenseman. So there was no need to put the 5 forwards there. If you had Mike Green or if you had John Carlson, right, or if you have Cam Fowler back there, even in Minnesota, we had I don't forget, we had Spurgeon and Brodin and we had Suter when he was a little bit younger, and they were all really good on the points here. And Vancouver, I had Quinn Hughes. So there was
not no need.
You're not taking him off, and I'm not making him a center either. So I mean, there's all of those guys were good. Now the Leaf 5, I find amazing. I mean, all 5 of them are so good. And it used to be 4. But I think, again, you talk about coming out parties. Matthew Knies this year, it's his coming out party. And, I mean, he has been excellent. And I think people forget when they watch how big and strong he is. He's 6'3", 225 pounds or something. I mean, I've never met him, but, I mean, that's a horse right there. And that goes in perfectly. Marner, I think, is the best distributor this side of Connor McDavid of the puck, and he can defend like when needed. So I mean, but their power play, I think they've scored 4 goals in all of them under 20 seconds on the power play. And the one thing that Ottawa's got to get better at is they have to win a faceoff. I mean, the Leafs win that first faceoff, and like if I'm sitting there and then I'm going over the tapes, is they make one pass and then they take it to the net right away. And that's what they want to do, is they want to take it to the net. And Ottawa is losing the draws. So, I mean, that's where the scramble starts. And the Leafs have been so good at just finishing the play right off. And I think their power play looks so sharp. And even at the end of the year, when those guys get on the ice and they're moving the puck around, it seems like all 5 of them have eyes in the back of their head. And they're not even using Austin Matthews as much as they used to use him. It's a Nylander, Marner, Knies type of show with Tavares in the middle, and Tavares being able to tip anything that goes his way. And he looks like a man of 27 years old again. So it's going to be really tough for that Ottawa team to beat the Leafs, because I guarantee the Leafs are going to come out tonight wanting to step on their neck and sort of say, this is it. You can't come back. I don't care who you think you are. So,
Well, so Ryan, you're the Ottawa Senators. How do you counter what the Leafs have done, and how do you stay out of the penalty box? Is it as simple as make sure the game is, battled 5-on-5 versus, 5-on-4?
Well, I think if you're Ottawa, you look at that second period in game 2 as your template, where they played fast, aggressive hockey. They dominated the Leafs, and they didn't take a whole raft of penalties. Like, they managed to stay on the line. And, you look at a player like Ridley Gregg, who has become sort of a main character in this series early on, and, a very effective agitator. It's not like he's taken a whole bunch of penalties. Like, even when Stolarz trucked him in the crease, he got a penalty. Yeah, I don't know why he got a penalty.
Why he got a penalty, and I can't believe, sorry to interrupt, but I was flabbergasted that how Stolarz couldn't have got 2 penalties there. Right. A, for the interference when he ran him over, the cross check, and the slash. I'm going, what are they not calling? And I was going to get on a soapbox today, and you guys are getting me going here, is they always say when we have our meetings that the standard of refereeing is not going to change from the regular season to the playoffs. And I've seen some people killing each other out there, and they're not calling it where they would be calling it in the playoff, in the regular season, and not here. They're letting all the physical aspects go. I mean, they're still calling the hookings and the trippings and that, but the physical aspect of the game, you can do anything you want, it seems, out there and not get a penalty. Even Josh Anderson, just when Tom Wilson comes up to him and he flattens him, and they both go. They don't want to put anybody in the penalty box. So, but I agree with you that the Ottawa has played, I thought, 4 really good periods in these playoffs. And if they can get a win, I think they're right back in it. But I think Toronto's mindset and Craig's mindset, I know pretty well, is they're going to come out and they're going to say, this is the game we want. We're throwing everything at them tonight.
Yeah. And, you make a good point about the physicality. I think if you're Ottawa, you say, okay, well, if they're not calling penalties on the physicality, let's ramp it up, because they know if the Leafs get on the power play, it's probably game over. Because, as you were talking about before, I mean, the hockey IQ of the 5 forwards Toronto put out there is so high. Mike, I'll point out too, if I'm not mistaken, Los Angeles, who's also been red hot in the power play, I think they're going a 5 forward unit right now as well.
That's interesting, because they do have Brant Clark's back there. Drew Doughty's obviously back there. They do have the bodies that they don't have to go that route. I wonder if it's a copycat league. We all know this. I remember seeing Peter Laviolette and the Nashville Predators do that drop pass that Ryan Kennedy loves so much to gain zones. I'm using that facetiously here. But then it's every team now does that. So I wonder if we're going to see more and more. To Bruce's point, I guess it depends on if you have the defenseman or not. Let's move over to the Capitals Canadian series. Like, this is one where, my heart of hearts, I was really kind of hoping that Montreal would be able to be the Cinderella team and do what they did way back when Yaroslav Halak pulled off the upset. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. Although
we had to bring that up. Hey, we had to bring that up. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Were you the coach then? Sorry.
Yeah, I think so.
But this does seem like a Washington team that, right from the start, like, I know Ovi's record was front and center, but it became such a year about not just trying to get Ovi the record. It was about, hey, can Ovi get a second cup? And the way that the Washington Capitals are playing, Bruce, I don't know if there's a team that looks more dangerous right now. How are you viewing things?
Well, you know what? I do a lot of the Caps games. I mean, the pre and post game. So I got a chance to see them a lot. And the one thing about them is that they do better than any team I've seen. If another team scores, they get up and they come right at you, and they don't sit back and let the momentum from the other team take advantage. They've got a thing where Spencer's just they go 100 miles an hour right after a goal is scored, and as you saw, they scored 2 goals in a minute and 20 or whatever it was the other day. But they're big and they're strong, and they're missing 2 players right now. I don't know when Protas is going to play, but at 6'6", 230, he's going to be another imposing guy on if especially against Montreal, that has not a relatively small team compared to other teams in the NHL. And I mean, their goaltender, though, if it wasn't for Logan Thompson, I think Montreal would have won the other night. So, I mean, if I'm Montreal, I'm feeling not bad right now. I mean, we're going to get home in front of the Bell Center crowd, and if we can be just a tiny bit better, we might win a game. If they can show up at the start of the game, I mean, if you looked at all the Caps games this year, what they do is they jump out to a lead and they protect the lead. And if they're within 1 goal in the third period, they throw everything at you until you either score the second goal or they catch up. It's a pretty simple thing knowing what they're doing, but they're big, strong, and if you see how well or how much they use that Dowd line, I mean, almost on every defensive face-off. I mean, and they're really good defensively, which is what you want your fourth line to be. So, I mean, and Dowd wins face-offs, and Duhaime is a tough physical guy, and they're using Radish out there on the right side. He's a big, strong guy. They're pretty complete, and they will be a tough out. Everybody thinks like, they didn't play very good in the last 20 or 30 games, and they didn't. But, I mean, they knew what they were getting, and they got the big guy playing as well as I've seen him play in 10 years. So, I mean, if he's going, people are following.
Yeah. Ryan, say if Montreal does drop the series, and it's looking kind of, we're 2 games away from that, is this something where, like, we view the season differently, or is it, what a young team this was? They obviously overachieved. No one was picking them, I don't think, for a wild card spot. And this is something that, even if they get swept, they're going to build upon. How do you view it?
Yeah, no, I think you call it a success already. Just making the playoffs was really good, but also getting into a series where you're playing a team made up mostly of Stanley Cup champions. Like if you think about Washington, those key guys that are still around from that run, and then they've got some guys that have made runs with other teams as well. If you're Lane Hudson, if you're Juraj Slafkovsky, those young guys that we feel are going to be the building blocks for years to come. Now you're saying, like, okay, this is what playoff hockey is. This is what the level is and how hard it is. Because don't forget, like, even though the Canadiens have been rebuilding, they had that weird run during the pandemic to the finals. So, you have guys like Suzuki and Caulfield that don't have a ton of experience, but they have made a run to the final. So it's kind of an odd situation. But I think for Montreal, they have to take the positive lessons from this season, because if you look at next year, and I know we're not even done with this one, but it's no guarantee they make the playoffs again. Like, the Metro won't be as weak, or it shouldn't be as weak as it was this year in the middle. Obviously, the top end was good. And with the Atlantic, you're still looking at Toronto, Florida, Tampa Bay, now Ottawa. you hope Detroit takes a step forward, and that means Montreal is in danger. So I think these kind of high pressure games are going to be important for the Habs even next year, where they say, okay, we have to buckle down. We know what we want to do, and we know we're capable of doing it.
You mentioned the Panthers there, Ryan. They finished third in the division, but come on, no, they weren't fooling anyone. And obviously, one game in, this team very much looks like the number one still threat to winning back-to-back cups and reaching a third straight trip to the final. Bruce, you know how difficult that has to be, but I imagine having a Matthew Tkachuk who basically took the last month or so off, getting a Brad Marchand who didn't have the same miles on him, and now getting an Aaron Ekblad back when he comes back from his suspension has got to help. But what do you make of those Panthers? Are they as scary as they looked in Game 1 against the Lightning?
Yeah, they were playing possum for the last month. I mean, they're a team that they knew. They didn't care whether they ended up first, second, third. I don't even think they cared if they ended up falling to a wild card. They know what they have.
They would have played the Leafs. They'd probably be happy.
Yeah, they know what they have, and they know how to get ready for a playoff game, and they know what's at stake, and they've done it 2 years in a row. So listen, there was times when they were resting 5 or 6 guys at a time. I wouldn't have cared at all what their record was, as long as they knew they were getting in. And I mean, you look at it now, it's a pretty solid lineup. And Tampa, we all thought, okay, now they're the team that's going to go to the Cup final again, and they still may. But Florida said, "Whoa, Nelly, hey, you got to get through us first." And I don't think they're ready to give up the crown just yet. They came out, and their team is so deep. I think they're ready for a long run. And I loved the way Paul Maurice has handled this. And I mean, without too much worry, without too much anything to the press, but inside the room, I'm sure he was telling the players exactly how to act and what to expect whenever they play anybody. And even the last game of the regular season, they lose 5-0 to Tampa, and they go, "Okay, Tampa, you beat us 5-0, and so we'll see you next week and see how that starts out then."
Yeah, the mind games. They just seem to be able to flip that switch like no other team. Ryan, do you still think that's going to be an interesting series, or did Game 1 kind of sway you there?
Oh, no. I mean, I know Tampa Bay is ailing right now, and that's kind of unfortunate. You would hope that everybody's healthy, and, Anthony Cirelli's questionable, and that would be a dramatic loss for Tampa Bay in this series, because he is such an excellent two-way center. And, they don't necessarily have the depth they did when they were winning the Cup because of those injuries, like a guy like Bjorkstrand as well. But, I mean, it's still Nikita Kucherov. It's still Braden Point. It's still Victor Hedman. Andrei Vasilevsky, we know historically he does not have 2 bad games in a row. And to me, what's going to be interesting, I do think it'll be a long series. I think Tampa Bay is going to bounce back. I don't think home ice advantage is going to play as much of a factor in this series because both teams are so experienced. But what I am interested in is, as Florida, let's say Florida wins, they have guys that are going to be very rested, and they have Seth Jones, who obviously has only been playing a maximum of 82 games lately when he was with Chicago. There was no threat of playoffs there. He's going to be a guy that can play a lot of minutes down the stretch. But my only question would be, at some point, does Sergei Bobrovsky get tired because he's gone on back-to-back runs to the Cup final, and now he's trying to make another one? We did see this with Vasilevsky a year or two ago, where he needed some time to recover, and then he obviously had an injury as well. That to me would be kind of the only X factor. And then obviously they traded Spencer Knight, so they don't have like a really good young guy to play in his stead. But to me, round 2 is going to be fascinating, assuming one of those Florida teams plays Toronto.
Yeah, keep in mind, last year, Bobrovsky made every start. The only time he was pulled was, I think, 1 game for Stolars. The year before, it was Alex Lyon who was starting the playoffs, and then Bobrovsky took over roughly midway through that Boston series. Keeping on goaltending, Connor Hellebuyck, Jordan Binnington. I was looking forward to this head-to-head matchup. ever since those two goalies locked horns at the Four Nations. Obviously, Hellebuyck has been the guy who regular season, the best goaltender in the NHL. Playoff time, though, a little dicey. So far, so good. I don't think goaltending has been the story of this series. If anything, it's really kind of highlighted or underscored, Bruce, the fact that the Jets are more than just a one goalie team. Like up and down their lineup, I don't know if there's another team that kind of comes at you in waves like the Jets do. I know it's the Central. I know it's the West. There's a lot of good teams, but how high are you on the Jets, and are they a legit contender in your mind?
Oh, they're a legit contender. There's no doubt in my mind. I think they're a really good team, and I'll tell you where I thought that these guys aren't kidding around this year is with about 10 games to go in the season. They went into Vegas and they beat Vegas 4-0. Okay. Then they played Chicago. They won in overtime. They played a couple of lesser lights and they either lost or just got by. Then all of a sudden they played Dallas when Dallas, if they had a won, would have been within 2 points of them for the Central Division crown. And they beat them 5-1. And then they had sort of a lackluster game. And then all of a sudden they play one more game. I forget who it was now, but they win 4-0. I mean, again. And so, they played St. Louis. And when St. Louis was on the 12-game winning streak, and they beat them again very handily. That's when I said, this team is a team that could win it now. They can step up their game whenever they want. And I believe they can. I think they're 4 lines deep. I think they're six defense deep. And if you've watched these St. Louis games, they can match physicality for physicality. I mean, it's been the most physical series, I think, so far. And I mean,
that Logan Stanley hit is going to be the hit of the playoffs, 100%.
Yeah. So far. I mean, he's 6'7".
And if he didn't hit him, Lowry was right there, kind of like, he just beat me to that.
I'm just wondering how Braden Shen gets up in the morning, because he must have had 20 hits in each game, it seems like, and he's not the biggest man. He's not like Luke. Luke will hit anything, but he is solid as a rock. So I think Winnipeg, by winning those first 2 games, have got a really, really good shot. And one more thing about Bobrovsky. The thing, what we talk about fatigue, he's not practicing. They don't let him. So, his fatigue is, Paul knows, that, hey, listen, he's playing the games. You don't practice. If you want to go on for a morning skate, go on for a morning skate. I know when I was in Anaheim and I had Jonas Hiller and we were making a push my first year there, he played 32 straight games, but we just wouldn't let him practice. We'd have a third goalie in. So he wasn't tired because, he was facing 25 shots a night, and then he'd be able to rest. And I think that's where Bobrovsky, being a veteran, and Paul Maurice being a veteran, they know what his workload needs to be to keep him sharp.
That's where the equipment manager comes in usually, Is that third goalie?
That's it. Yeah.
I remember the Leafs for years. Ed Belfour never practiced. Well, I say never, but like you just mentioned, and it was Scotty who was their equipment manager and later equipment rep who strap on the pads every now and then. All right, a guy who hasn't been practicing a whole lot over the last couple of years, Gabriel Landeskog, took his first shift since the 2022 playoffs the other night. First shift was 33 seconds, and what a moment it was. I've been a huge Gabriel Landeskog fan ever since his major junior days, and how can you not root for a guy that basically was told that he's probably never going to play hockey again, and better to pack him up, and he's diligently been just working at getting back, and it hasn't been a straight line by any stretch of the imagination, but what a feel-good moment. And it really kind of reminded me of the bubble year when Steven Stamkos was fighting to get back, plays that one shift against Dallas, scores on the shift, and we didn't see him again. I hope that this isn't the last time we see Landeskog, but Bruce, you coached against him. What were your thoughts and emotions seeing him make his eventual return?
First, I think the fact that he's back is, I can't even imagine being 3 years off and then coming back and playing. And for him to do it, it's stuff that you make movies about. You've seen the old movies where guys was one, I know you might not remember. It's called the Monty Stratton story, where he had his leg ripped off in baseball. He was in the war, and then he came back with a wooden leg and was a pitcher for the Cardinals. It's a great story. But that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking of when I think of Landeskog. Now, I mean, it must have been an incredible moment. I think if it was me, I would have played him in game 2 if he was ready, rather than game 3. And the reason being simple is they were already 1 up. If they played him in game 2, they would have seen what they were getting at. They had that 1 to give. Now, I mean, and he would have still got the same hand at home. He would have still got the same reaction at home, but he would have had 1 game under his belt, is my thoughts. And now, what do you do? Is he healthy? Did you like the 13 minutes that he played? He had 6 hits, or now we're down 2-1. Can we afford to put him in because he's our captain, or do we have somebody better to put in? I don't know what the answer is at all, but I would have liked to have seen him in game 2 rather than starting off in game 3, because the butterflies are going. You're at home, you know what's going to happen, and I think that it takes a little bit away from the team focus when you're at home and that happens. But what a tremendous story. I do hope they make a movie about it. I think anybody that comes back on that many knee operations and what he's had to endure that story deserves to be told. I think it goes down as one of the great stories of sports.
Yeah, 2 months ago they didn't have anyone better, so it wasn't even a question. But this was one of the more active teams at the deadline, them getting Brock Nelson, Charlie Coyle, and I can't remember all the players they got. But Ryan, what do you think? Is Gabriel Landeskog going to be the X factor, or is this still going to come down to maybe the players that were involved in the Rantanen Nashis trade? I guess months ago now.
Yeah, well, I would say the other X factor that we haven't seen yet is Miro Heiskanen. When does he return, and does he return? I think the fact that Dallas has won 2 games now, that really helps them, because they don't have to necessarily rush him into the lineup, and hopefully he's just ready to go anyways. But you're talking about emotional leaders on both sides. You have the amazing Landeskog return, and then to get Heiskanen back in the lineup, that would be huge for Dallas. I think we saw the template for Dallas success in game 3. Low scoring, right? Tyler Seguin plays the hero in overtime, but you don't want to get into a track meet with these Avs, because you're right. They have so many weapons, Nettish, obviously McKinnon is probably going to win the Hart once again this year. Rantanen's on the other side. There's so many storylines just in this one series. I know we talked about it before the playoffs even began, but it's why couldn't this be a conference final? Why does it have to be the first round? But I would say, hey, let's just be happy that we had it to begin with. And, it's probably going to be a long series. I think with Landeskog, the good thing about his style of play is if you just had to play him on the 4th line, you're not wasting his talent. It's not like he's like a one-dimensional finesse guy that needs to be in the top 6. Landeskog can be a bang and crasher, right? So if he's only playing 13 minutes, as long as he's giving you solid 13 minutes and they were, better or as good as the player he's replacing, I think it's fine.
Real quick, New York Rangers extended Chris Drury. So he's back. Obviously, Peter Laviolette won't be back as head coach. If you're the Rangers and if you're Chris Drury there, Bruce, what's more important, finding someone to coach this team next year, or finding some players that are going to, make sure that this season was a one-off?
Well, I mean, you can make points on both of them, but I mean, I think the players are definitely more important to me. I mean, Peter's had success pretty well everywhere he's gone. So, I mean, even though you could put if you want, you can throw the blame on him. Zibanejad's getting older, Panarin's getting older. These guys Kreider's getting older. I mean, they're going to have to find some secondary scoring. Like Lafreniere, to me, he signed that 8-year deal, and then I didn't see him for about 4 months. So, I mean, it's to me, I think they need a big shakeup, and and say, okay, let's make one of those 1970 blockbuster trades that
Esposito for Park.
Yeah, like a Cliff Fletcher would make in the Doug Gilmour range. I think they got to change the dynamics of that team, and I hate to use the word culture because I don't know what the culture is like, but they got to change the personnel of that team because I think everybody's too comfortable. I didn't see enough emotion out of that team when they were down and they had to fight back. So I mean, I think it's a very blasé team, and they need some guys to kick butt. Now JT will do that, but he might turn some people off in the way he does it. But I mean, he's a guy that plays with his heart in his chest, and you got to love him for that.
Ryan, I know you've been really critical of the Rangers and a lot of the underperforming guys, but if you're looking for a coach to kind of change, maybe help change that culture, what kind of coach are you looking for? Is there any names that you'd be, floating out there?
Yeah. First of all, I can't believe they extended Chris Drury when this was basically his fault. Like, they were doing fine. Then he put out the memo that anybody's available for trade, and they went completely into the tank. And then he's making all these trades that felt like panic ones, like the Jacob Trouba trade. I said this on the show before. They trade him to Anaheim, ostensibly a rebuilding team, and then the Ducks finished like a point or two away from the Rangers by the end of the year. Like, they were basically the same team in the standings. So for me, I hate when a coach gets fired when it's the GM's fault, because it's not like the coach can be like, no, you're fired. Like,
Talk to me about it.
Yeah. It's very unfair. And, I mean, hey, ownership is, they made their decision that Drury can fix his mess, and maybe he can. But I agree with Bruce. It does feel like a culture change is necessary. I know folks have floated out the idea of Rick Tocchet coming from Vancouver, and I can understand that logic if the Canucks can't get something figured out with Tocchet. But I mean, to me, the Rangers, they really blew it. And, we were talking about Byfield earlier in the show. LA was amazing with his development. Like, they didn't start him at center. They sheltered him on the wing. He learned from Kopitar. And now, he's turning into a star. He's got lots of support in that top 6, that top 9. Whereas with Lafreniere, it always felt like they were trying to force him into a role that, he wasn't ready for. And I think we're seeing, two guys that were drafted the same year with very different ends to their season, or ends to the regular season, because obviously Byfield's still playing. But, I mean, the Rangers, I think they need another experienced coach, simply because they should be a Stanley Cup contender with the players they have in their lineup and the goaltender they have in their crease. So I don't know, Bruce, what are you up to next year? Like, what's your schedule looking like?
I'm trying to hint at, guys.
I keep looking at my phone, and to see if Chris is phoning me, I would definitely love one more kick.
Connecticut area code coming up.
Yeah. So, I mean, but you never know. Like, there's a lot of good guys. It always seems to me like New York is looking for the big splash all the time. And I just, like, that's why I think, like, if they were looking for somebody, it's the Joel Quenneville type type that would go in there. But I mean, obviously there's a lot of good coaches. There's a lot of good ones that aren't working right now that would like to get back to work. Or I could keep doing these things with you guys. But I mean, I know where my heart is.
Well, listen, I still think on paper that's a team that should be the playoff team and a cup contender. Like, they got the goaltender, they got the North Trophy defenseman. Offensively, they've got more than enough pieces. So I still think it comes down to coaching. I hate that the coach is always the scapegoat. That being said, sometimes it's the easiest and the only move you can make. All right, listen up, hockey fans. The Big Show is brought to you by Sticks.com. Why break the bank on hockey sticks when you can get a composite stick without the pro price tag at Sticks.com? That is STIX.com. Head there now and gear up. Ryan, we got your favorite part of the show. This is our rapid fire segment, Bruce, where we go through 5, maybe we're going to have time for 6 topics today, but real rapid fire. And we're going to start off with you, Bruce. You're a former Jack Adams winner. Probably should have been a multiple Jack Adams winner. This is me doing my best to make sure I'm in your good books. Who is your pick for this year's Coach of the Year?
Spencer Carberry.
Yeah.
I just think what he's done with a team that they didn't know, with all the free agents that they had to mix in, and to be the second best team points wise in the league. I think to me, there's a lot of good ones out there. A lot of them have had good years, but he's had the best year out of them all.
Yeah, it's
There's a
Carberry
lot of
for
new
me too.
faces. Yeah.
Especially considering, like, think about our preseason expectations. Like, I think most of us were thinking like the Caps were maybe a wild card team, and this season was basically like get Ovi the record, and whatever else happens is like gravy. Instead, they were like wire to wire, one of the best teams in the league.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's hard to integrate that many new faces, that many young players, and also keep your old guys happy all at the same time. So I'm with you, Spencer Carberry, all the way. Here's another Caps-related question. Will Alex Ovechkin retire before the age of 50?
Yeah, I think his wife will make him retire before the age of 50. But hey, listen, the way he's playing this year, like he looks like he's 25, 26 years old again. And I'm not saying even the goal scoring, but the way he's hitting right now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, last year, for example, like, which was a real off year for him for most of the year, he wouldn't move his legs and he wouldn't hit. He would be bouncing into guys. Now he's punishing guys again. And when that man hits, it hurts. And so, I mean, I don't know how long he wants to play, but if he loves to play, that's the one thing I do know. That, I mean, he's going to play next year. And if he has a great year, who knows? He might say, 1,000 is within my grasp. And I might want to play till I get 1,000 goals, which is totally unheard of. But I think Mr. Leonsis will let him dictate how long he wants to play, and if he wanted to retire in a year or after this year, if they won the cup, I think he'd be very happy with saying, "Hey, you did us good. You did the Washington Capitals good," and he'd be very happy for his commitment to the team for 20 years.
Yeah.
How about you, Ryan? Do you think he's going to challenge Mr. Howe and I guess Jaromir Jagr for still playing?
No, I don't see it. I think maybe a couple more years. I had the same thought as Bruce. Like, could he get 1,000 goals? That would be a nice little round number. But even if he gets like 950 or something, that's like a great bar to set for anybody else in the future who might go for that goals record. But I don't think he's going to go that far.
It's funny, Bruce, you mentioned the physicality, and that I know we always talk about it, but it also seems like it goes overlooked. The fact that this guy plays the game more like Eric Lindros than he does Wayne Gretzky. And, Alex Ovechkin's probably going to go down as the greatest power forward to have played the game as well. And, you're right. He, even at this advanced age, he seems like he's not slowing down. Doesn't seem like he's getting weaker. So it is kind of deadly to see that he can beat you so many ways. Back to you. Like, I know, like, obviously you played, you had a career in the NHL as well as in the minors. Who was, like, as a player, who was the greatest goal scorer that you played with? And I know you played with Sittler, you played with McDonald, you played with a lot of good names there. Is there one guy that you just kind of marveled at how good of a scorer he was?
Are you talking that I played with? Played against? Played
either or, I guess.
Well, you know what? It's because most of my career was in the minors, and I thought Paul Gardner was as good a scorer. He wasn't a good skater, but he could score 50 goals every year. I mean, you play against Gretzky, he's as good as anybody. I had the luxury of playing against, or if you call it a luxury, playing against Gordie Howe. I mean, and you know what he's all about. But I mean, there's so many good players back in the day, like whether it was Marcel Dion, I mean, Guy Lafleur. Like, I mean, when you played against the Canadiens, and like in '79, especially when we lost in the playoffs against them, man, watching those guys fly. I mean, they could, from Steve Shutt to Lemaire to Lafleur. There's so many good ones, and that I remember. But I always bring it back to Paul Gardner because he could score. I used to get so frustrated because I wanted to be the best scorer in the American League. I could never beat him. He was always just get a couple more than me every year. So I think he was as good as there was.
Awesome. Halfway through, I guess, the first round, roughly halfway through, do we think we're going to get any upsets in round one?
Upsets. I mean, if you call Florida beating Tampa an upset, I think I've always picked Florida to win the Cup again this year, and I think they could do that. That would be an upset. I mean, I don't think LA beating Edmonton is an upset to me. I thought for 3 years they've won them, so the fourth year, like, it's difficult to win 4 years in a row. I think LA is going to win this year. I thought Winnipeg was going to beat St. Louis, and I did think Colorado was going to beat Dallas the way Dallas was playing at the end of the year, but those 2 overtime games might have changed my flavor a little bit, but I still think it's going to be a 7-game series. I thought Ottawa matched up against Toronto, but Toronto has played so darn good down the stretch, going 12-2-1 in their last 15, and now so they're 14-2-1 in their last 17, and they know how to shut it down. I mean, they play great defensive hockey. Stolarz, if he continues to play the way he's playing, is great. I think Montreal's going to put up a fight, but I think Washington's better. And I don't know, did I cover them all?
Minnesota. I think Minnesota over or Vegas could be the upset.
It could. You're right. And you know what? It's like the New Jersey Carolina series. Those are the 2 series we always forget to talk about, right? Like, you know. But Minnesota, when they got Kaprizov, don't forget when they have Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek in the lineup at the beginning of the year, they were like 19-4-1 in the first 24 games, and we're in just behind Winnipeg in first place. And then those guys, they started getting injured. Now they're all back. So, I mean, I still think Vegas is a really good team, but there could be an upset. I don't think New Jersey's got a chance against Carolina. And so, I mean, if there's any upset, I think it could be Minnesota over Vegas.
Yeah, that would be the only one that I could see. Like, I think Vegas has to be real careful in Game 3 to not let Minnesota really get comfortable. But otherwise, I don't see any upsets, especially with Winnipeg taking care of business the way they did in the first 2 games.
All right, I got a couple more, so we got to be kind of quick here. All right, should Vancouver have discussed Quinn Hughes' contract when?
No. Nothing Vancouver does makes any sense at a managerial level. Even mentioning the other Hughes brothers, it's like, are you trying to get fined? Is this some kind of bit?
And we're a year away from when he can sign his contract extension.
Yeah.
I don't think Jim can help himself. I mean, he really can't. Well, why?
I love Jim Rutherford to death, but sometimes I think you're right. I don't think he.
I'm glad you love him. But I don't even know why he was doing the talking. Why isn't he let the GM do the talking like every other team? You know, like, I mean, he didn't need to say anything. I mean, like, why would I know there's a method to his madness, because I know how he acts. And so, like, when he's doing things, I can picture him doing it, but there was no need to mention Quinn Hughes at all. At all.
Was he playing 3D chess, but we're actually playing Battleship here?
Yeah, like, I don't know what he was.
We're playing
really
hockey.
doing. Yeah, we're playing hockey. It's like he would come into the dressing room. I got to tell you this quickly. Like, he told me 3 times. He says, "I think you should put Quinn Hughes at center." And I'd say, "No, I'm not putting Quinn Hughes at center. I'll definitely get booed off the ice as a coach." I don't know if that's what he was planning, but I mean, he should have just kept quiet and realized that they had injuries. They had a lot of stuff going on this year. Regroup and go in next year. Now, you don't think they're going to be asking Quinn that question for the next 2 years? Like, I mean, they asked Pettersson about his deal for a whole year until they signed him. I mean, it was an unnecessary move as far as I'm concerned.
All right, last question, guys. This is going to be the easy one. Who are we picking for the Stanley Cup? Has it changed, Ryan, since you made your before the playoffs pick?
You know what? It's so funny. I finally gave up on Dallas because of their injuries, and then they've been and they're winning the series. But I'm gonna stick with Winnipeg because I just feel like there's nothing missing there for the Jets.
Well,
Is
as
this
a proud
an easy one for you?
Canadian, yeah, no, as a proud Canadian, I hope it's Winnipeg against Florida and that Winnipeg brings it. But I think Florida's going to win. I still think they're the deepest team.
Okay, I'm gonna go Toronto now. I originally picked Tampa. Now I'm not so sure, but like to Ryan's point, he picks Dallas every year. I almost pick Toronto every year, and I look like a fool. And the year I don't pick them, they're probably going to end up winning. But I don't see any weaknesses. You mentioned Stolarz.
It would be a great parade. It would be a great parade, I can tell you. If they thought they had a couple million at the Raptors parade, if Toronto wins, the city might not go back to work for the whole summer. That's all I know.
Sure.
Listen, Yonge Street's not that far from me here. I'm up in Newmarket. I bet you'll go all the way up Yonge Street, all the way here.
Totally.
So. Listen, Bruce, it was a pleasure having you on. Hopefully we can do this again next week. We still got lots of playoffs, so I don't think this is going to be the last time we talk to one another. But, for the hockey news, for Sticks.com, and this was the big show. We'll see you next time.